I'm Jacob Yoffee.
And I'm Jerri Penland Yoffee.
And this is Raising Digital Humans.
There's a lot happening in the world. I think one of the major things happening is AI. It's a big discussion for a lot of families, but there are also a lot of people who aren't fully aware. I think we're so caught up in the changing political climates that we aren't paying attention to this change going on in the world. I think everybody's aware of it, but not really keeping up to date. I think that's kind of what we want to be here for, not just parents, but just people in general that are interested in this stuff.
It seems like the only thing I can compare it to, because I was so young when it was happening, was the internet.
Yeah, oh my gosh, how old are we?
You know, but I feel like that happened much more slowly.
Mm-hmm.
The rollout was at a pace that we could keep up with, but this is just from the moment ChatGPT premiered, and I think it was October of 2022.
Yeah.
I mean, this is insane how quickly it's gone. It's totally taking over everything. It's like every decision is designed to either benefit or thwart the advances of AI.
Yeah. And I think the thing is that AI is obviously here already. But I think a lot of people have like this idea of what AI is going to be like when it comes on the stage. Like it's just going to like take over everything, you know, Terminator type of style. But, you know, it's affecting things already in many ways. I think in particular, the way that the internet affected things, but I think it's just on a grander scale.
The biggest fear I know I have is the feeling of being obsolete, of being able to provide for yourself or your family, and then also just not knowing exactly what should you be doing for your kids so that they have a future 20 years from now.
Yeah. You know, in the future of jobs, it seems like we should be focusing in a different direction, but I think we want to start with more of the emotional side of it.
Yes, definitely the emotion. Some of the things we've been thinking about, the discernment. We used to teach our kids how to find the answer, and now the answer finds them instantly. It's not difficult. You can have your kid, I mean, any of us can create an essay, you know, in a matter of seconds. And so getting the information and displaying it nice and neatly is no longer a challenge. So then the discerning mind is really, that's where our jobs are going to lie.
I guess the main question is curiosity. Does it change curiosity in a way? You know, because I think in the past, like, at least when we were ancient, you know, you'd go to the library and then you look through Dewey Decimal to find books related to that. And now the curiosity is so instantaneous that it's like, kind of changes maybe the way that you're ingesting what you're curious about. Because I feel like when you're in a book, you're purposefully reading. And I even do this where like I'll use ChatGPT and it will like give me a whole bunch of stuff and I'll just like go to the end. Like I won't really read some of it, what I'm finding, you know, sometimes.
Sure.
And so like I'm like purposely being like, no, I need to like read what it's saying, not just going to the end and being like, oh, give me the next thing.
Well, I think the discernment is really like an important factor here because we all know, they call it hallucinating. These LLMs make mistakes, and they're only helpful if you know enough about the topic you're researching to be aware that there are mistakes, and you can tell it, hey, wait a minute.
Yeah.
I think the scary thing is that you could have young people or any of us, we don't know enough about a specific topic. The benefit that we have right now, at least until one of them takes over the whole world, is we have multiple major players on the scene, and you can kind of take something and go and bounce around.
The different major players on the field right now, just so everybody's aware, because these are the ones, when we say major players, it's the chat bots more type of thing. It's conversations that are kind of being had with these chat bots.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, right now we're starting with 3 major brains. I mean, this is controversial. We've got ChatGPT, Google's Gemini, Anthropic's Claude. I would add to that we have Perplexity AI as well as XAI's Grok. So there's 5 major ones. I think, of course, ChatGPT is the champion overall with the number of monthly users, and it seems like every week it changes depending on whichever benchmark was just surpassed. One of them sort of takes the lead, and what's starting to take shape is the strengths and weaknesses of each of them. And so it's becoming like they're getting siloed into very kind of specific applications. And if you are aware of it, you can help your kids use the proper tool to accomplish the right task rather than just using the same one for everything. Because some of them are better at specific things than others.
And they are very different, though, like the way they learn, like your personality, the longer that you use like a specific one. And we've talked a lot about how ChatGPT is kind of more human-like. Like it's, and I personally, I was telling, Jacob about, I'm finishing up like a children's illustrated book, and I'm hoping to, start querying, agents. And so I was like talking to ChatGPT about like very specific questions for the query for, how to submit the book when they ask for it and everything like that. And it gave me its responses. And then I went to, I think it was Grok next. And it did not understand at all like what I was even like beginning to talk about. And so it's like they definitely serve different functions for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, of course, Gemini being made by Google, I think its search function is obviously powered by Google, which is incredible. And of course, I mean, Chat or OpenAI has already released their own browser, so it has huge strengths. But for instance, just off the top of my head, I know Perplexity seems to be really fantastic for pure research. It is much more straightforward. It doesn't seem like it's as maybe talkative as the others, but it's more like going to the library and using the Dewey Decimal System. That also could be simply because it's had far less use by the overall world population. We don't know exactly yet. But just recently, like one of the big breaking news this week, the Claude code revolution. The industry is just going crazy over Claude Code, Anthropic's new command line interface, which is CL1. And unlike standard chat-based AI, this is an agentic tool. It can actually enter a computer's file system, write code, run tests, and fix bugs autonomously.
So is that what agentic tool means, is for it to be able to go into your computer and do things in there? Or what does agentic mean exactly?
So basically, it can work as an agent on your behalf.
Okay. Agent. Okay.
Yeah. That works. Yeah. So this, basically, in terms of raising digital humans, being a parent, I think this marks the shift from AI as a tutor to AI as an autonomous worker. One of the things people are using AI agents for, like in Gemini, you can say, I want you to go research this topic. I'm interested in principle X or principle Y. I believe this. And it will go find things to both support it and negate the theory that you have. And it will continue to research while you're asleep, and it'll give you updates rather than just quickly giving you a specific answer.
Yeah. So that's really interesting.
Well, I think all of them have agentic. You have to pay and have a specific account for those.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
So most of us probably are doing the $20 to $30
which
per
is
month.
More affordable at this moment in time.
If agentic things are, I think they're closer to like the $200 a month.
Yeah.
Perhaps they will become cheaper over time. We will find out.
Yeah. The question is, though, is a lot of us really won't need that type of thing unless we are a researcher or you use it for your day-to-day schedule,
Sure.
And I thought it was fascinating. Jacob was saying the other day that he's been working with Gemini to help him maximize his time in a day. And he'll start the conversation with it in the morning, like, what is the major thing I need to do today? I think that type of thing is probably more beneficial to somebody like you.
I'm trying to I started with ChatGPT, and I'm just sort of experimenting. I was with ChatGPT for about a month, and now the last few months I've been using Gemini, and I've used both to help develop like an exercise and supplement nutrition program. And then I have all the various work requirements, all the different projects we have, and just to keep track of everything. I've experimented with allowing Gemini to access my Gmail and my Google Workspace calendar. And it's very interesting. It's fascinating. I'm starting to see how it can be like a really powerful tool. It takes a lot of discernment. It's not something that I'm used to doing.
Yeah. And it's not perfect too.
It makes mistakes.
Like you were saying yesterday, how it was saying you've been working out like early in the morning, and it said, no, you should be working early in the morning versus working out in the afternoon, but you were like, well, that provides its own issues with changing that up, that it's not taking into account. So it's still going to need tweaking on your behalf. And it's interesting because I'm really pro ChatGPT, but I've been using it pretty regularly for a few months, and it's kind of been like a what's the word I'm looking for? Like
Co-pilot?
like well, no, not exactly. Like a collaborator.
Yeah.
So it's really gotten to know my personality and all of this stuff, which is kind of weird. But we've been bouncing like ideas for RDH, Raging Digital Humans, between ChatGPT and how I'm using it, and then you using a couple of different tools, Gemini and Grok and stuff like that. And so it's been really interesting because it's like, sometimes we'll go in and be like, what should we talk about today in AI? Because sometimes it'll pull up articles like we didn't even see, so we're like, oh, okay, well, that's really fascinating. Or a YouTube channel that we maybe should pay attention to. And each search engine is providing its own different, things that we should be looking at or we should be discussing. So it's very fascinating to see how
I think one of the
different.
most exciting things you can do right now is that all of these LLMs currently offer a free tier. It's totally possible that you could have a question, you could have an idea, a project, a creative idea, whatever it is. You could take it and ask ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, Perplexity, Grok. Put it in all of them and see what comes out and compare them. You'll see very quickly they have different approaches. They have almost different personalities. And one of those is going to give you what you want. And then you can take the answers and feed it into the others. It's really fascinating to kind of iterate ideas.
And it'll help you too sometimes. Like one of the first big picture making ones was Midjourney. And so I was trying to work out some picture ideas, and ChatGPT actually gave me prompts to put into to use to try to develop more of what we were trying to do. Sure. And that's really interesting that they can actually prompt you how they understand hey, this is how the other one works. And so this is how you should prompt them, And so it's fascinating that they're kind of even aware of each other.
Yeah, my 7-year-old was interested in coding and making his own video games. So I was trying to use one of the LLMs. I think it was ChatGPT, and it said, I can only do but so much. You should go use Replit.ai. We started using something called Rosebud.ai, which is really great for entry level, making video games with your kids, because you kind of have all these games that are available that you can base a new game on top of, so you can get to something really quickly. Replit.ai, you can create entire software programs, websites, web applications, and of course these video games. And it's really fascinating, and it kind of draws on, it uses some of the agents from, I'm not sure if they use Claude or not, I'm not sure what it's using, but it's very user friendly. Yeah. But yeah, Chat was the one that recommended that we go there.
Yeah. Today we just wanted to touch base on who the main chat bots, who your kids are going to be encountering and are already encountering, and hearing the names. Our kids have already heard the names, Chat GPT. And it's funny because growing up, we'd be like, oh, that's a question for Google. But now they're like, oh, can you ask Chat GPT, or can you ask, Grok? And it's like, wow, that's a little different.
Yeah, I think the web browser, I'm not sure that'll ever go away, because we're going to want to access websites. But as far as asking Google, I feel like, even Google is using Gemini. It gives you the AI summary at the top.
Oh, yeah, that's true. So I think before using Google or what was it, Ask Jeeves or any of those old search engines, I think that will still be important to teach your kids how to look through that type of stuff, because it's own online Dewey Decimal System. So I think having your kids search on their own is going to be really important when it comes to not just doing papers for school, but just in general, if you want to learn about a specific topic. First and foremost, going to the library at least once a week and looking at books is going to, looking at paper, physical paper, it's going to be a big deal. And that's one thing that we've been trying to do with our boys, is at least go down to the library at least once a month, and they're excited to go there and do that stuff. And we haven't really, because they're 7 and 3, looked at searching for specific books or topics yet. But I think as our 7-year-old gets a little bit older here, I could see in the next couple of years probably doing that a little bit more.
Well,
So,
one of the things that, is within our grasp now with all these LLMs, you no longer have to think of Chat or Gemini or any of these as just like, ask me a question and I'll spew out a bunch of text or visual information. You can actually ask them to design a little program to teach them about addition or subtraction, and it'll create something. You could go to replit.ai and say, create a video game that teaches the kids how to type on a computer. Or
that's true,
it can do all these things, where in the past we would have to pay somebody to use an app or a program that that you paid monthly or a one-time fee, but now the LLM can create something you might use only on one given Monday or Tuesday, and then you could say, hey, okay, now we need it a little more difficult. The uses of this is like a tutor program. They'd be used in conjunction with yourself as a parent. It's really, the sky's the limit.
Yeah. So, I mean, there really are a lot of exciting, interesting things happening, so we never want to just dive into this negative, scary world that's happening, because there are exciting things, but there are cautionary tales that are currently happening now. And so I think that was one of our main reasons to want to do this. I mean, especially because we were caught so off guard by social media and the way that social media was affecting, especially this kind of generation right now. I guess, are they calling it
Alpha?
Gen Alpha? Yeah, that's kind of like, entering college, like just at this moment in time.
Oh, no, is
that Gen Z?
Gen Alpha are still kids.
Yeah, no, yeah, Gen Z. We're seeing the ones that are entering college, how social media has affected them, having the phone. And so like we're trying to help Gen Alpha learn from that. Because in a way, there are guinea pigs. They're like the first generation growing up with this in the home. It's in we have Alexa in the house, or we have the Apple remote that you can just talk into and find a movie and stuff like that. That's all AI.
Sure.
I don't think we really think about that, but Siri, all of that stuff, that's AI that's already been here before chat even really came fully into the conversation.
The benefits that we do have, Jonathan Haidt, he has a book from last year, 2024. Wow, 2 years ago now.
Oh, yeah.
2024, called The Anxious Generation. It's really a fascinating, if not terrifying, read. But we do have the benefit of looking at the past 30 years. You think about growing up in the 90s, we went from the dial-up internet to, Ethernet. But then we also had the video game systems, PlayStation, Xbox, Nintendo, Game Boy, all that stuff. And we had kids starting to experience like addiction to the screens. And then in the 2000s, in 07, we had the release of the iPhone. And I think within a few years, it was like 80 some odd % of kids had an iPhone.
Yeah. And then that addiction got worse because you were bringing it everywhere with you. Whereas versus like in the 90s, I mean, that stuff kind of stayed home. I mean, even the beginning 2000s when you had social media, it stayed home on your computer. Now, that we have iPhones, I mean, all of that stuff comes with us. All of that burden, all of that just anxiety, comes with us all everywhere we go.
Sure. One particular year that really stands out from reading Jonathan Haidt's book is 2012, because that's when Facebook, or Meta, purchased Instagram. And you can see that the suicide rates skyrocketed, and it really affected teenage girls.
Yeah.
And that's also the same year that all of the phones released the selfie camera. And so that really affected people's mental health.
For girls in particular, body image was already a huge thing before that. And so I think adding that on there just made it worse.
One of the things we haven't talked about yet was you have all of that leading up to, or not leading up to, but one of the great causes of the loneliness epidemic. Of course, the pandemic magnified a lot of this. So now the thing that I'm afraid of with young kids is they do have the phone, and a lot of these LLMs are a companion. Even Grok has this pretty scary feature called companions, and it actually has a visual. You can make it a guy or a girl. They look like cartoon. They can look like whatever you want. I haven't used.
We saw an article the other day that this girl, I believe it was in Japan, that she married her companion. You know, she made like this anime, like attractive looking guy.
That was an adult.
I was an adult.
I think what we have to do is, I always use this comparison that humans have had thousands of years to develop their relationship towards alcohol. We know the right and wrong way to consume it. We know when someone's gone overboard. We have interventions. There's Alcoholics Anonymous. We have all these things, but we're only now realizing what our relationship should be towards the internet. If someone's perpetually online, whether that's mentally healthy or not, and then social media, well, now AI and the fact that they have these companions, we have to be incredibly aware going in. This could lead to some really severe mental addiction issues and personality issues. You have to be, as parents, aware.
Yeah, and I think a lot of them, the issues are already obvious of what they're going to be because they're already a part of our society. Like, the idea of like the movie Her, like those things the idea have already been out there. But how do you work with those? I don't think that we're really trying to find solutions to a lot of this stuff because it's just like, oh, we know that social media is doing these things, but we're just going to continue to allow kids to go on social media. And then you see things like, believe it was Australia where they say like, hey, no, you have to be 18 or over to go on social media. And I think that's a lot of problem for our society in general is we're not looking at that. People might disagree with me on this situation, but why do kids need to be on social media?
Exactly. Yeah. I think there was, of course, when Facebook started, it was like, oh, this is a great way to stay in touch and photos and funny things. But then it morphed into getting followers and likes.
News would be on it all the time. And, so... we're literally like at the beginning of social media. I was at Point Park. I remember exactly. I've told Jacob this story many times, but I was sitting on the floor with another girl like down the hall talking about something. And all of a sudden another girl ran out of her dorm and was like, Point Park has Facebook. And I remember looking at the other girl like, what is Facebook? Like, I didn't even know that it was like a thing at the time. But I remember everybody being so excited about this thing. And, I was just like, this just doesn't make any sense, because at the time you had to be a college student. You had to be in college to be able to access it. And I think it was about a year before I had it because everybody I went to high school with was like, yeah, we got to stay in touch. So to me at the time, I was like, oh, okay, well, and it was like only your friends that you were seeing. So it's morphed into something completely different, and we've watched it completely change.
I think that the overwhelming feeling now in regards to AI is doom and gloom. Most people are like, hey, this is bad. It's gonna either turn into the Terminator and come for us all, Skynet, or take all our jobs, make us obsolete. But at the same time, I think that it's obvious, at least to me, that how I feel about it personally is going to have no effect.
Yeah, it's going to happen regardless.
And it is a literal race. There are geopolitical forces at play. I mean, we don't have to get into all that. But as parents, I feel like this is here. And it's sort of like, there was a film in the late 90s called Gattaca.
Oh, yeah.
About people who were messing with their gene splicing and DNA. And they basically created humans that were super metahumans, and there were people who were natural born, and then the superhumans got all the jobs, and the people who were natural really struggled. Fantastic movie. But in my mind, I want to be fully aware and educated about what's going on with AI so that, hey, I know the dangers, but let's get all the good stuff from it and make sure we're not left behind.
We definitely don't want to fearmonger at all on here unless we eventually find something that we do believe is something that we should be afraid of. But what we want to do is try to help with guidance with your kid. And so we want to talk about how to use these, 5 in particular, in a way that will protect your kids, but also benefit them in some way, shape, or form. Because, your kids don't have to be techies. They don't have to grow up and work in the tech field. We just want kids to have discernment with the things that they're looking at, especially with like deep fakes and stuff like that. So, it's just such a different world. And unfortunately, we're all getting older, so we need to try our best to keep up with it just because, like Jacob said, it's here, it's coming. And whether we want to pay attention to it or not is not going to affect anything. Because our kids are, one day they're going to leave our home.
Right.
And they go to friends' houses now, or they, so they're going to encounter it some way, shape, or form. So let's, figure out together how we're going to handle these conversations.
Sure, forbidden fruit, right? You can go to any room in this house except that one.
Yeah.
And that's the room they want to go.
Yeah. So I guess, we should talk a little bit more about like conversations that we should first, like dinner table conversations you should have with your kids when approaching this type of thing.
Sure. I mean, a couple ideas that I wanted to talk about. We already mentioned the GPS for the soul. You used to teach your kids about finding the answer. Now the answer finds them instantly. So being a discerning mind is really the most important thing here. The idea of the standard path is gone. For 100 years, we would tell our kids, learn this skill, get this degree, do this job. I remember my father saying constantly, you're going to go to college, you're going to go to college, you got to figure out what you want to do. It doesn't matter what you want. AI just deleted that map. If we raise our kids to be experts in any specific software or language or discipline, it's going to have some kind of shelf life. You don't know if it's actually going to exist in the future. So that's what's really scary right now. But if we raise our kids with the discernment, the ability to look at a problem and extrapolate with a human need and judge the ethics of a solution, they become valuable.
Learn how to be themselves first before they allow this tool to kind of dictate who they are in a way.
One of the big jobs that has appeared in the last, I think, 12 to 15 months, I forget the exact acronym, RHLF, but it has to do with humans having to look at what the AI exporting and just make sure that it's correct, make sure that it feels right. And it's a huge business. I mean, like you're talking billions of dollars in business because somebody has to review this stuff. And I think even, I scored a show about AI about 6 years ago. And in the series, they followed a trucking company that was using AI. And it helped the drivers. It caused a lot of less accidents, but they still needed a human driver in every single truck. And they needed humans to help fix the computer systems and run it. So there was just a lot going on that still needed people.
Yeah. You go to McDonald's and there's no human beings in there. That's going to be a long time. They might have the ordering things already, but I mean, they freeze up. They still have issues. Right. Humans become obsolete in certain areas of the field.
One idea I've been thinking about a lot is the whole concept of literacy. In the past, they said, if a person could read and write, you were so much more powerful. Well, now reading and writing, of course, is a baseline, but literacy is about, of course, being able to use AI appropriately, but also filtering. We get hit with tons of AI-generated content, but again, filtering. So if you ask ChatGPT a question and it shoots some stuff out, you need to be able to discern whether it's incorrect, whether that's even valuable. Is it useful? Is it just garbage? Is it worth getting excited about? That filter is where humans are.
Yeah, that would be probably for like teenagers right now. I would say conversations to have.
Yeah.
Because I was listening to a podcast the other day with this gentleman right here. Wiley, that's it. I was going to say Hiley. I was like, no, that's not it. Wiley. And he was talking about, learning how to write a 3-paragraph paper, why that's still important. And, that's going to be applied more to, like I said, like the teenager generation right now is to understand this is about learning about how to have conversations with human beings. Sure. Because we're still going to encounter each other every day. Or, learning how to research and make up your own mind, about specific things and not allowing the chatbots to make up your mind for you. So there's a lot of actual benefits for those types of things, the past way of learning, because they help your kids, learn a lot of these skills that you need to have in just your day to day, because we're not to the point now where we all live in our own little bubbles yet. Sure. The kids still go to school. They're still going to have to get jobs. They're still talking to people online, so I think that's important.
It was a rude comment, but, Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, was asked at a press conference, this was probably last year, whether AI was going to replace all humans and human labor and human jobs. And he said, AI isn't going to replace humans, but it is going to replace the mid-human. You know, I mean,
But
that's
I think to a point.
yeah, to basically what we're talking about is like intentionality over optimization is something I've been thinking about. You know, as you become an adult, you understand when you go to do a task, you know, you have to have very deliberate intention if you want to do, number one, do a good job, complete it in a good amount of time. You want to be productive so that when you're doing something, it's actually creating progress in your life, moving your life forward, which is like a kid. I remember my dad yelling at me and he would snap his fingers, wake up, pay attention.
Yeah.
A job isn't worth doing unless it's done well. Well, AI is going to give people the chance to kind of phone it in where they're not really paying attention. Mistakes can happen. And so that's, again, coming the idea of discernment, intentionality with using AI. So we want to teach all the kids the difference between just like typing in something into chat and being like, sure, I copy pasted this.
The thing I think from like a school standpoint, like they've already implementing, you know, AIs in some of the schools. I've seen some, you know, schools in Pittsburgh that already have AI, and the younger, like the elementary schools that are introducing some kind of like AI like character. And so the thing is that whether we want to introduce it in our home or not, it's being introduced in school, you know? So the thing is that I think we need to talk to our kids about, hey, this is what school is for. Yes, you have these options available to help you, but these are helpers. They are not to write your paper. And if they do write your paper and you turn it in and you didn't read it, I'm telling you, there are still many mistakes that they make, not just information-wise. I mean, even just spelling, I've found a lot. And just ChatGPT, that would spell something wrong. Or it would completely, if we're not knowing how to prompt things correctly, you know, it completely goes off left field, you know. So that's why it's important, I think, to have conversations with your kid and be like, yes, we have these tools that we can use to help us to a point, but we still need to go to school and get an education and work towards your dream, your goal, because you don't want an AI educated doctor in the future. At least right now, you don't want that.
Sure.
You know, if your kid wants to be a lawyer or a doctor, even an artist to a point, you don't want that. You know, I think that it's still important to be pushing that it's just a tool. It's not a perfect tool. It's going to be getting things wrong a lot. Maybe we can learn to use it together. It is not going to replace you in doing your schoolwork. That's one big thing that I think schools do worry about. Teachers worry about is getting papers that are great that they write. So you don't know how they're going to turn out, but the kid still has to do the work is what it comes down to.
Yeah, definitely. And I know that schools are doing things where they're kind of dividing tasks, homeworks, assignments into 3 different tiers. You know, one that's 100% human accomplished, one that's dual, and one that can be entirely AI.
Yeah.
And I think that's interesting to understand the difference.
And I think all these things we're talking about, we will post on our social medias and stuff like that. You know, the articles about, you know, specific schools, or like you're talking about the 3, you know, tiers of learning that they might be implementing in the future, you know, because like they changed math. They're going to change, you know what I mean? Like they're going to start implementing this stuff in here. So I don't want parents to, you know, like we're sitting with our 7-year-old right now, and we didn't learn math the way that they're learning now. I'm like, why don't you just 10 plus 5 is 15? Like, why do I have to put these things in these bubbles? And like, but I mean, he gets it, thank heavens, you know, and the teacher sends things home because I'm like, why am I learning it this way? Yeah. You know, but it's just funny. It's so different, you know.
It can be very frustrating, and I'm sure the frustrations aren't going to end anytime soon.
Yeah. Yeah. So, you know, we have several pillars, I think, that we're going to talk about, you know, so, you know, we'll post about all the pillars that we have, and this being our first episode, I think we maybe talked a little bit more.
Coming from a place from overall that we want to acknowledge the dangers, but we want to give a prescription for positive use cases and really find a way forward regardless, and just set our children up for success, this new world. And it's changing daily.
Yeah. And so I think that, you know, what we want most is for every kid growing up. I mean, they're the future. They are. When they say kids are the future, 100%. And that having AI doesn't change that. And so we want kids to be successful in their lives, and we want them to grow up and be functioning adults. Because I mean, I think we just have ignored a lot of the problems. And we have a lot of adults right now that really struggle.
Yes.
You know, so I think if we start now, even with teenagers, it's not too late to have these conversations with your kids and just the things that we need to worry about. And we'll touch more on it. But, you know, I think one of the main driving things for me wanting to do this is I saw an article a couple years ago from a mom who was warning. And I mean, it just broke my heart. But her teenage son had committed, I think on YouTube, you have to say slew or slide. You can't really say that. But because he fell in love with his AI, companion, And then there was another kid not too long ago that the AI companion, we know ChatGPT, big in the news, that convinced the kid, essentially told the kid to commit slew or slide. And I mean, there's just the devastation of that. It breaks my heart. We have to find ways to have conversations with our kids about this stuff.
Sure. We can't ignore it and just be like, I hate AI.
Yeah.
That's not going to help the situation.
Yeah. I mean, having uncomfortable conversations with your kids is part of being an adult, unfortunately, being a parent. And so I think that you can never 100% prevent things that are going to happen. But, I think we just need to try our best. And so I think we're in the mode of over explaining things to our kids. And, our 7-year-old was like, yeah, Mom, you already told me that. I'm like, yeah, but I'm going to keep telling you, it's something I've told him many times. And he was like, you told me that, Mom. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm going to keep telling you because it is my job.
Yes.
So
it is.
We know that curiosity is there. And that's just the human condition.
Yes. All right. So the takeaways that we want to end with, you don't need to raise kids for the future. You need to raise them well in the present because it is here. Parents, we're not behind. Kids aren't doomed. All of this is learnable. And we are going to take the path of positivity because I think anything else is going to just mire us in dread and doom and gloom. And that's really not going to be productive.
Yeah.
The idea is to figure out, okay, what are the things that we can do? Let's utilize the good here so that we can safeguard our children's futures.
Yeah, exactly. And, we'll have up there on our social media the dinner table conversations we're going to call, such as things like, what are things that you can do as a human that a machine can't? I think right now we want to focus on just allowing your kids to ask questions. It's okay sometimes if you don't know the answer. We'll figure it out together. That's totally fine. I mean, we're still trying to figure it out as we go. But I think that the main takeaway from this as a parent is you've got these chatbots, the 3 major, but there are 5 altogether. And we just need to have conversations about safety and the exciting things, I guess.